All right, so this is the basic yin sequence. We'll start with a butterfly. So taking the soles of the feet, joining them together, and you have two options. One is heels close, which is going to get into this area here, the groin. And the other one is heels out, which is going to influence the spine more. Okay, so you can choose which one you prefer, which one you'd like to emphasize more. Just coming forward and down, nice and relaxed. We want to feel that stretch along the backside of the spine, nice and gentle. Now feel free to use support, forehead, forearms. You could put blocks, knees, but be mindful of the knees. If you support them too much, you're not going to get any stretch here in the groin, okay? Now, heels out is going to be more back, spine, gently stretching the vertebrae here in the back of the spine. I think I already mentioned heels in is going to be more groin, and which one you choose is going to be based mostly on what you're feeling in your body today, which one feels more effective. So maybe you want more in your back. Maybe that's where you're feeling tension or tightness, or maybe you've had some pain back there. So you want to focus on the back more. Heels out. Maybe you've been feeling really a lot of tension in your legs, your hips, been feeling very stiff. Maybe there's pain there. So again, heels in. And of course, there's an infinite number of stopping places between the two. So you can sort of decide, well, you know, split the difference. Personally, I find a lot of times splitting the difference, you can end up not really getting the benefits of either. So usually I recommend and I choose to choose one or the other. But that's my personal preference. If you and your body type, you might find that you can split the difference and you get the benefits of both. So again, the key is experimentation, feeling what's going on in your body. I'll just mention that if you are targeting the back and the spine, those sensations in this posture, they're not going to be as juicy, for lack of a better way of putting it. So legs, we have a lot of really big, strong muscles in our thigh, in our hips, okay? So those usually are really satisfying stretches. I've noticed since I've been online and posting things since the start of the pandemic, you know, I can sort of see which things tend to be more popular, which things people tend to click on more often. And sure enough, hip flow is one way to get more people to click. It's, again, just a very satisfying. So if I know nothing about yoga and I do a spine flow, something that focuses on the joints of the spine, health of the spine, I may leave that class feeling like, yeah, I don't know if anything happened or not. I don't know if I feel that different. I don't know if I feel that much better. Now, rest assured, if that spine flow was well designed, you got a lot of benefit from that. But if you're relatively young, relatively healthy, you may not feel that different because you already have a fair amount of energy. Your spine is probably relatively healthy. It doesn't mean that you can't make it healthier or you can't try and start maintaining that health by doing the spine flow. But your subjective experience might be like, well, I don't know that I felt the effect of that. Whereas hip flow, most people are going to feel it. It's going to be, again, kind of a juicy, Ooh, yeah, I feel that stretch. Oh yeah, I'm stretching. Oh yeah, I really feel that, each posture. Um, and so again, the subjective experience might be like, well, that was better. That was a better class. I felt that class. Um, but what I'm hoping to do when I talk in these classes is to begin to educate you that just because you don't feel the effects of something, it doesn't mean that it didn't have an effect. So a great example is penicillin or antibiotics, right? When you take the antibiotic that your doctor gives you, you don't feel it. You're not like, oh, wow, I have more energy and I feel my immune system working. You need to take it for a while, and then all of a sudden you start to feel better. And what does the doctor always say when you're taking antibiotics, right? Keep taking it, even though you start to feel better, right? Finish taking it. Take the whole course, right? So again, very often we are more driven by how we subjectively feel. All right, dragonfly is next. So the legs are wide. And we just want to come straight forward and down. Now, I always like to mention when I teach this that you want gravity to be pulling you forward. Okay, so last night I was teaching in Brookhaven, and there were people doing this. Okay, and it's usually men. I don't want to generalize too much, but honestly, 10 times out of 10, it's a guy. It's not a woman. I'm not saying it can't be a woman, and I'm not saying if you're a guy you have that problem. But just be mindful. If your hands are back here, if you feel like if you fell asleep you would go back instead of forward, then a couple things to try. Sit on something. Put something under your knees so your knees bend. Okay, that'll loosen up the hamstrings. And then the final option is just actually repeat this. Do this one again. Okay, because your knees are bent. Again, that's going to loosen up the hamstrings. Okay, so even when I teach in person, I don't like what I call helicopter teaching. It's both a personal preference and it's a professional decision that I made as a teacher a long time ago. And this isn't about right or wrong. This is just about sort of what I think actually works long term. Okay. So, some teachers, they hover and they're constantly sort of micromanaging the class and the students. Hey, put your foot there. Oh, your toe's not supposed to be there. You shouldn't be doing this or that. That's fine. I'm not here to criticize people that do that. Okay. The way I teach, it may appear to some people like I don't care. It may appear to some people like maybe I don't know that much because I'm not constantly sort of managing what's going on. You know, again, people have different ways of viewing what you're doing, but I'm going to tell you it's a very conscious decision on my part not to hover, not to micromanage. So what I try and do is give information and educate. Everyone in my class is basically an adult. So I'm not dealing with children. A lot of people like to argue that, oh, well, children's brains aren't fully formed, the prefrontal cortex, so they can't make decisions rationally and you shouldn't ask them to. That's what the parent's supposed to do. I don't know if I buy that, but whatever. It doesn't matter because I don't have children. I'm not in any, I don't have children as any part of my responsibility. I deal with adults. So as adults, we want to put that kind of idea aside, right? That you are too incompetent, you're too young, you're whatever it is to make your own decisions. So my approach to teaching is, again, partly personal, because I don't like hovering. I don't like people trying to micromanage my experience. I like to learn my own lessons. I need a certain amount of freedom to make mistakes, to experiment, to try things, and then decide for myself is what the teacher or the doctor or the physical therapist is what they're saying. Does that resonate with my experience? And again, I only know by trying, experimenting. And if it does, then I will follow and I will listen, you know, and do what they say. If it doesn't, then I might choose to listen to somebody else. I might try something else, whatever it is. And I think it's important that we all have that freedom. So when I teach, even in person, I don't like to hover or insist that people do exactly what I'm saying when I say it. You know, it's a very conscious decision to give people a lot of space. Now, for some people, the truth is they aren't listening, or they didn't hear, they're not paying attention, or they're confused. Okay, but again, that's part of the experience for me, part of the learning process. The nice thing about yoga is, generally speaking, it's a low impact, safe activity. So yes, you can hurt yourself doing yoga. Most of the ways that you can hurt yourself are going to be by doing something incorrectly over and over and over and over and over again, probably for years. And usually that's going to require you to ignore what you're feeling in your body, to ignore warnings like pains that are starting to come up. Okay, so usually you get plenty of warning. Usually the people that do that are people who are driven by some kind of ambition, and they ignore the pain because, I love having people clap in yoga class when I do XYZ pose. It happens. Not sure if all of you come to yoga classes or what your yoga classes are like, but sometimes if you're the most flexible person in class, the yoga teacher might say, hey, can you demo this pose? Can you do this pose and show everybody? And you do it, and then people clap. They're like, wow, that was amazing. Look at you. So again, that reward, that rush of dopamine, ooh, I'm the center of attention. The whole class is clapping for me. Well, what if doing that pose is starting to cause problems, pain? Which do I choose? The applause and the dopamine rush? Or, hey, you know what, guys? This is really hurting, so I'm going to skip today. Maybe ask someone else. All right, let's go ahead and come on out of that. Let's rest back on the back, take a few breaths. All right, so bringing the legs in, we'll just shake it out a little bit. And then banana is next. So let's begin just by moving our hips over to the right edge of the mat. Now, as an example of what I'm talking about, this is one that people do incorrectly, meaning ineffectively, all the time. And to me, it's a very simple posture, and I try and really be very clear in my instructions, but yet still, last night as an example, there was still somebody in the room who's doing it incorrectly. Okay? All right, so we keep this hip down, very important, but move your legs as far over to the left as you can go safely, comfortably. And then you want to do the same in the upper body, but you may actually have to, I don't know if you can see my head and shoulders, I'm sort of wiggling, scooting, those are technical yoga terms, wiggling and scooting myself over to the left. We want to feel stretch here. Okay, waist and ribs, so this side, the right side. Okay, now what do I see happening in class? Almost every time I teach this, again, it may be my fault. Maybe there's a better way for me to describe getting into it. Maybe there's something I could say that's magical. But when I see someone doing what I'm about to show you, I will say, keep your hip on the ground. Keep your right hip down. Okay, so this is what I see. All right, what's wrong with this? Well, what's wrong with it is it's ineffective. From what I understand about biomechanics, anatomy, everything that I've learned, everything in my training tells me that if you do what I just did, you will not feel a stretch here, which is where we want to feel it. I don't care who you are. Now, if someone's doing that and I come over and I say, hey, do you feel stretch here? And they say, yeah, I'm not going to argue with them. It doesn't matter what my training says. Doesn't matter what I've learned in anatomy class. If they say, yes, I feel the stretch, then I'm not gonna argue. But again, given everything I've learned, I don't see how that's possible. Because in order for us to stretch here, these are our obliques. In order for us to stretch the obliques, we need this, which is called the iliac crest. Okay, you can palpate, you can feel on your own body. I recommend you do so you start to learn these landmarks on your body. Okay, so you can feel along here this ridge, this bony ridge here. That's called the iliac crest. Okay, and so that has muscles attached to that bony ridge. Okay, and then if you run your hand up, you again begin to have some bone up here. So this is the thorax, also known as your rib cage. And again, you have muscles attaching there. So I think the other week I talked a little bit about how you stretch muscle, and that muscle only contracts. It does not push. There are no pushing muscles. There's only contracting skeletal muscles. Okay? So smooth muscle, like digestive muscle, that's a little different, but we don't mess with those in yoga. Yoga is always about messing with skeletal muscles, okay? So in order for me to stretch the obliques, which is, again, the group of muscles here, I need the iliac crest essentially to go down or to stay where it is, as the thorax, the lower ribs here, are moving up or away from the iliac crest, okay? So that's why this shape, this positioning works. It's a very effective way to do that. This doesn't do that at all. You're just laying on your side. That might be very comfortable. It might be very relaxing for you. But again, effective. Is it effective? Are we feeling the stretch in the area that we want to feel it? If the answer is no, then at least in this kind of yoga class, there are many different kinds. And again, they will have different emphasis. But in this kind of yoga class, that's just, it's not working. It's not doing what we want it to do. Okay? So again, my approach to teaching is, right and wrong are not about like good and evil. It's not, hey, you're doing that pose wrong. What's wrong with you? You're, an imbecile, or you're something is wrong with you. It's, hey, you're not being effective. That's not going to get you the desired result that we want. How do I know what the desired result is? It's my class. Okay, and every class I teach has an intention or intentions for it. In yoga, there are both short-term intentions that I hope to achieve within a given class, and then there's the larger, broader intention of yoga as a whole, okay, which can be described as spiritual, or you can describe it as, sort of self-realization, self-fulfillment, becoming the best self that you can possibly be. That's really how I see yoga. That's really what yoga is about. All right, let's switch sides. As you come through middle, the neutral position, you might just feel both sides. Can you feel the effect? Do you feel any difference? Hopefully you can. I definitely do. And then we'll move our hips over to the other side. This is called banana pose. Okay, so again, pretty much leaving the hips is like the one part that doesn't move. But then everything else goes as far over to the right as we can. So again, you see I'm sort of scooting or sliding my upper body over until I feel this stretch here. So this long and short-term result of yoga, this is important because it can lead to a lot of confusion for people. Short-term in this class, so there's the goal of the class as a whole, which we could say on one level for me today is just to make sure I give you guys certain specific stretches. Okay. That's sort of my short-term goal. In this pose, specifically, I want you to have a stretch here. So again, even within the class, we can narrow it down to pose by pose or exercise by exercise, right? If we're doing something in Monday's class, of, an arm balance or something like that, there's certain specific benefits that ultimately I'm hoping to give you by doing when you do that pose, okay? So there's pose by pose, the benefit, the class overall, and then there's the long-term effects of yoga, which again, for me, is helping you reach your most full potential, physically, mentally, emotionally, and in every regard. And for me, again, that I call that spiritual. Other people might call it, self-help or self-actualization or whatever. I don't really care. For me, spiritual is different than religious. Okay? And again, this is just my own personal way of navigating the world of yoga, the world in general, right? Everyone, you are free to define these things however you like. But just so you understand me when I'm talking, when I say spiritual, I'm not talking about your religion. So you can be whatever religion you like and still benefit from my teaching in yoga because I'm not trying to argue with your belief system. That's not what yoga is about. Okay, that's not what my teaching is about. Now, having said that, there are certain belief systems or ideas that may short circuit or interfere with what I'm trying to share with you. And that usually happens with what we'd call dogmatism, where you have certain really rigid beliefs or ideas that prevent other ideas from entering into your heart and mind and affecting you. So, I'll just put that out there just so you're aware of it. But religion is really about a set of beliefs. All right, different religions have different beliefs. They're all around the world, right? Some religions have spread from one very local place and then spread throughout the world. But you'll notice that no religion has popped up in different places of the world spontaneously. Interesting, huh? So yes, you can have a religion that starts in one part of the world and then spreads like a virus. It just spreads out over time, and then it's all around the world, but it's around the world because it's spread. But there's no religion that spontaneously, boop, 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 Africa, India, China, United States, Canada, Mexico, just popping up spontaneously. That's never happened. It's never happened, okay? So if that happened, that would be very interesting. But what does happen, if we pay attention, we do find that there are spiritual concepts that pop up like that, all around the world, spontaneously on their own. Interesting, huh? So the specific beliefs of different groups of people, they always differ based on the time and the culture in which those religions appeared. So if it appeared at a certain time and eating certain foods were dangerous, usually that becomes part of the religion. Oh, we don't eat these foods. We don't eat meat. We don't eat pork. We don't eat shellfish. We don't eat whatever. Okay? So again, that's a belief. Oh, my God doesn't like when I eat this food, so I don't eat it. That's a belief. It's fine. Okay? But yoga is not really about that. It's not about accepting a certain, number of beliefs. Yoga teaching is, again, designed to help you become your best self, physically, mentally, emotionally. Now, there are certain concepts or ideas that could be very helpful if accepted, but none of them are meant to be accepted just on blind faith. Like, just believe this because I say it, or just believe it because God says so, kind of thing. And again, there's nothing wrong with that if that describes your experience. Like, I believe this because my sacred book says to believe it. That's fine. And that's religion. But for me, that's separate from spirituality. All right, let's go ahead and come on out of that. Now, what makes things complicated for us is usually spirituality and religion are mixed. So usually people encounter a mix of both spiritual truths that are transcendent, beyond culture, beyond time. They are universal and eternal, spiritual truths are. And in most religions, what we call a religion, you have some of these that are there. They're present. They're in the religion. But it's also mixed up with cultural and temporal stuff, like don't eat these foods because they're poisonous or they're bad for you or whatever it might be. So most people in religion are experiencing a mix of both spiritual truths, again, that are eternal and universal, and just sort of dogmatic cultural beliefs. All right, let's bring our legs in. Now, again, I'm not trying to criticize that. I'm just trying to lay out sort of my view on navigating these things, because it can be very confusing if you don't understand these things. Some people who do yoga, they might be a very devout Christian, and then they start to feel like, well, am I like converting to some other religion here? Like, can I still believe what I believe, or whatever it might be? And for me, it's like apples and oranges. I can understand where that confusion comes from. But again, if you understand things as I'm explaining, hopefully that won't happen to you. Okay, we're going to come into a tabletop. Let's do a little bit of the bear. Our idea is just to move the torso around, stretch things out a little bit, work the kinks out. And then when you're done with that, you can come into a down dog and again, stretch out your feet and your legs a bit. All right, we'll come forward now onto the belly. Prop ourselves up on the elbows. And that's the Sphinx. We're looking for a little bit of compression in our back, just a gentle, not too intense compression in the back. Okay, so right in the back there. If you want, you can take your arms straight. It's just going to be deeper. That's called seal. And the variations for the two poses are the same. So head held up, drop forward, drop back. Shoulders depressed, relaxed. Legs together, legs apart. Okay. So going back to the idea of the short-term versus long-term, short-term, what we're doing in this class, so in this posture in particular, let's just use this posture as an example. In this pose, we are trying to reinforce, recreate, strengthen what we call the lumbar curve, which is this curve right here in our low back. As a healthy or young human being, you should have a nice, strong lumbar curve in your back. If you look at the next time you see an elderly person who looks really elderly to you, who has that sort of rounded, hunched back posture, try looking at their back, see if they have a lumbar curve. Chances are what you see is they don't. And so this is, if we're just breaking down aging, what we consider quote unquote, the natural aging process or what we expect to see in the elderly, this is one of the things that is like a telltale sign. Is I no longer have my lumbar curve, and what that does is it pushes my head and shoulders forward of my hips. So again, you'll see many elderly people with walkers or canes. Their neck is bent forward. They have that sort of hunchback posture there. So short term, in terms of this posture, we are trying to reinforce and recreate that lumbar curve. Why? Because generally, as we age in our culture presently, most of us will begin to feel like we're losing that over time. If you're young, if you're in your 20s, you're in your 30s, probably not going to feel that way. It doesn't mean it's not already happening to you. That's the interesting thing about it. I read a book recently by a scientist, and she was saying, you're in your 20s, your 30s, you don't see the effects of aging, so you don't really think you're aging. You don't think that you need to, change anything or start eating right or start taking care of your body. But she was very clear. She said, if we were to look, at your cells, we would see the effects of aging nonetheless. So there's no question that the sooner you get started working on combating the effects of aging, the better. And probably the more gracefully you're going to age. Potentially the longer you'll live, but for me, that's really not nearly as important as what we call health span. So there's lifespan, right? How many years you live? I don't really care that much about that, to be honest. I mean, I'd like to live a long life. But honestly, if I'm 100, and since I was 50, I have been in a wheelchair, hooked up to a machine that's breathing for me, not able to eat real food. And I'm describing some people's real experience, by the way. Not able to go outside, not able to hike. I may not want that life. I'm not sure that I want to just be alive for the sake of saying I'm alive. If I can't breathe on my own, if I can't walk on my own, if I can't eat or digest food on my own, I'm open to trying it, but I'm not convinced that that's a life that I want. Now, again, because I have been very close with people who are in the medical field, so this isn't just conjecture on my part, folks. Okay, I have had very close relationships with people who are surgeons, who are nurses, who are doctors, and there are people that I'm describing their life, basically. Can't walk, can't go to the bathroom on their own, can't eat food, real food. Basically can't really do much of anything, but they're quote unquote alive. We are able to quote unquote keep them alive. Is that really what you want? So you live to 150 like that. Is that really what you're seeking? You have to ask yourself the question. All right, let's come on down. The reason this is important for us is modern technology has been developed that can keep you alive for a very long time. But again, many people don't question what is the quality of that life. Do I want that life? And the other part of it is we're all going to die at some point or another. And sometimes people think that that's being bleak or depressing. Death is natural. It's going to happen it's happened to every human being on this planet, every animal, every plant. There's nothing on this planet that is forever. So it's just a fact. We can see it as depressing, or we can see it as just, that's the way life is here. We're all born, and eventually we'll all die. It's the way it's supposed to be. So for me, what's more important than lifespan, how long I'm alive, is what is the quality of my life while I'm here. All right, hopefully you all have your block. If you don't, feel free to repeat the last posture as an alternative, okay? Otherwise, you can do the saddle if you'd like, or the supported bridge. So supported bridge, you lift your hips up pretty much as high as they'll go. You take your block, which hopefully you have. Try and place it so your hips are at the same height as your safe maximum. And then you can take those legs out and you can bring those arms up overhead, and that's the supported bridge. You might feel the stretch here. You might feel compression here. You might feel both, a little bit of both. I do, okay? So those are the, that's our intention here with this posture. So this is an important thing to understand. And again, I learned this from my ex, who's a surgeon, and she would work with patients who were, at the end of their life. And we were talking with my father actually, because he was trying to decide what to do with his will. And, he was convinced, well, I don't really need much, I'm fine as long as I have, some books to read. He was just very unrealistic about end of life. And what my ex tried to convey to him is like, dying is not the problem, right? If you were perfectly healthy and then you just drop dead, that's not a problem for anybody. What she tried to convey to him is, with modern medicine, you can go on 10, 20, 30 years where maybe naturally you would have died 30 years ago. But because of modern technology and care, we can just keep you alive for decades with conditions that really might make you feel like you'd rather be dead than alive. And I guess right now in the United States, we have a little bit of a debate going on about, can you just decide when you want to, end your own life, these types of things. So anyway, if you're not careful, you end up living a long time, a life that maybe you're not really being realistic about what that life would look like. So this is where the idea of lifespan versus health span comes in. The people that I read and follow who teach about health and aging, generally speaking, their goal isn't necessarily life extension, but a lot of times that comes with it. The healthier you are, it's a lot likely you will live longer. But again, with modern technology, we can keep you alive even though you're very unhealthy. I'm going to repeat that because I feel like many people don't understand that. They don't fully appreciate that, okay? Modern technology can keep you alive for a very long time, and you left health behind a long time ago. Now, I said earlier, I think yoga is about, reaching your full potential for happiness, for health. Okay, so in my experience, and again, I don't know everything. I'm wrong about stuff all the time. And so feel free to disagree. But I'm just going to put it out there, my experience, the way I see it. It's very hard, if not impossible, to live a truly joyous and happy life without health. Okay? So if you're always in pain, if you can't do the things you want to do because of physical ailments, whatever things, it's going to be hard to feel really fulfilled and really happy and really full if you can't do those things. I'm not going to say it's impossible. I'm not saying in every instance, maybe you were born without a limb or born with an illness or whatever. I think every life has its challenges. But being born with an ailment or, having something happen, you get in an accident or something, or you go, you ship off in the military and you
you get a limb blown off or something. You know, this is a particular person's journey or experience. I'm not saying that they can't be happy. I think you can. I think that's just part of your journey. That is different, though, than being born with a perfectly healthy body and just gradually letting it fall apart. Okay, so one of the things that I would hope to impart on you in these classes, something I didn't know for a very long time. Okay, so again, people sometimes think I'm being arrogant or I'm like some kind of know-it-all or I'm preaching at people. I'm just trying to share the things I didn't know, the things that I've learned that I think are valuable. Okay, take them or leave them. It's up to you. But I didn't know that for us to be happy and healthy, it requires maintenance. We can't just go to work at our computer, go to the fridge, eat our food, get in bed, go to sleep, wake up the next day and do the same thing and expect optimal health and happiness. It just, in my experience, that, and I've tried that. So just FYI, again, sometimes people think, oh, he thinks he's so perfect. No, I've done that for decades, okay, in my youth. And rest assured, I can tell you, I was not as happy or healthy as I potentially could have been. But I didn't have anyone telling me the things I'm sharing with you. That's why I share. Right? It's not because I think I know better than anyone or whatever. I've just learned some things through personal experience and through study that I think is valuable, that I wish someone had shared with me. So I am trying to do that for you. Again, take it or leave it. So if we want health, right, I really don't, again, if I am fine if just one day life ends, because guess what? I won't be here to be upset about my life ending. That won't matter to me. But if I'm sick for decades, I'll be here and I'll be suffering. And I'll be wanting to be outside on a trail and I won't be. I'll be in a hospital hooked up to a machine, you know, beep, 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 beep. I really don't want that experience. Again, if it happens to me, I will try and deal with it. But ideally, I prevent that. Let's gradually come on out of this. So again, one of the things I've learned along the way is if I don't consciously make choices in this day and age to be happy and healthy, chances are those things will not be forthcoming. That unless I'm very, very, very lucky, even then I have my doubts. But unless we're proactive, we will generally see our health and happiness kind of slowly going away over time. I'm not saying in every instance. Maybe you have an elderly grandparent or parent and they are just full of life and joy and they eat fast food every meal. They never exercise a day in their life. They don't do anything to maintain their health and happiness, and they're just like a glowing light. That's awesome. That's not most people's experience. So that person, maybe in yoga, we might say that person has a lot of good karma. They're just lucky. But we shouldn't expect to be that lucky because that's not what most people are experiencing. All right, let's go ahead and give our legs a little squeeze. And we're going to finish with a twist. Okay, so right over left, and then we're down to the left here. And we're just twisting the spine now. So again, my approach to teaching is to try and motivate through education. Because for me, what I've learned about these things is a much stronger motivator than how I feel when I'm doing these classes. I'm just going to be completely honest with you. They've done studies and they've shown some people like how exercise feels. They just do. It's, you know, genetic or whatever, but they like the way it feels in their body. They exercise, they like the way it feels, and then they feel motivated to do it again because they liked it. They enjoyed it. All right. For whatever reason, I'm not like that. I teach yoga for a living, and I'm not like that. Okay. I'm not going to say I don't do a yoga class and feel better or you know, feel that I got value from it. But generally speaking, it's a longer term thing. Some of you know that, you know, I play music, and that is much more of, I would say, like a short-term dopamine hit for me. I can go in my music room, pick up a guitar. I can play for 3-6 hours. I can play for the whole day, really. I can lose myself in that experience. And I will lose track of time. I won't eat. I'll just completely be transported to, you know, a what we'd call a flow state. Okay, so I'm not exaggerating. I've done it. I've lost entire days just playing music, not even making music, you know, not even playing with anyone else, just me and my guitar, just playing hours and hours and hours. Okay, so yep, that is a strong motivator. I know that if I pick up the guitar and I start playing, I'll start to get that dopamine fix. I'll go into the flow state. I'll forget about all my worries and troubles for a while. I'll just go off into an altered state, you might say, a different state. Physiologically, again, we can study this all with science. My brain state will change. All kinds of things will change. Cool. It's a good motivator. That's one of the reasons why I can play music at the level that I can play, which is like a professional level. I'm not saying I make all my money playing music, but I can get paid to make music, and I do get paid to make music. So that's, you know, a relatively high level of ability in terms of music. But what about exercise? What if I go out, you know, for a run and I don't feel great? What if I go for a long walk and it's cold like today, or it's hot in the summer and I'm sweating, or I'm shivering, you know, and I don't feel great right after that or during it? What if I do a yoga class and it's hard and I feel sore afterwards and I don't feel that dopamine rush, right? Does that mean I should stop? So I think you all know the answer, right? I'm a yoga teacher and I'm telling you, I do not feel that dopamine rush when I exercise. Doesn't matter if it's yoga, doesn't matter if it's CrossFit, doesn't matter if it's running. You know, hiking I enjoy to a degree because I'm in nature. But I could just as easily put up a hammock, get in the hammock, and just sit there and I'm in nature. I probably would enjoy that more, to be completely honest with you. Okay, if I'm just completely, just straight up, what am I personally enjoying? If I'm just using my personal enjoyment as motivation, would I rather hike or would I rather sling up a hammock and swing? I'd probably rather put up the hammock, to be honest with you. Okay, so why do I go out and walk 3 to 5 miles every day, whether it's hot or cold? What motivates me to do that? Why do I do yoga? Why do I stretch? Why do I eat foods that I don't particularly love, and some I maybe don't even like? Why do I do that? What motivates me to do that? So again, what motivates me is I've been educated and I've learned about these things. And so that motivates me more than, ooh, this feels really good. Oh, I like the way this tastes. Okay, let's switch sides. So left over right. We'll twist. So now again, this is a problem with the way that I am. I just haven't learned how to communicate effectively or differently. Maybe one day I will. So I'm always open to learning, changing, growing. But for whatever reason, when people hear me talk about this stuff, they usually hear it in a finger wagging way. You should do this, you should do that, blah, 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 blah. You know, I'm doing this and you should do it too. That isn't at all what I'm trying to do with this. Again, I'm trying to motivate you to do things that I've learned are good for you. And I know from personal experience because I'm doing them. And I haven't always done them. And in no way I'm trying to imply that if you choose differently than what I'm encouraging, that makes you a bad person, that automatically means you're unhealthy or unhappy. No, I am not saying that at all. I'm just trying to share and give you, the information and the tools for you to make the right choice for you. So if you find your health is suffering, if you find or you feel like, hey, I'm not as happy as I feel like I could be, I've had several conversations with people this week, and I think January, at least in Atlanta, it can be kind of a bleak time of year for a lot of people. A lot of low energy, a lot of overcast, cloudy, cold days. You might spend a lot of time indoors. And so it's easy for people to feel unmotivated, to feel kind of down, maybe even unhappy or depressed. Some people experience, seasonal depressive disorder. I used to experience that a lot. Like in wintertime, I wanted to hibernate and just wait for spring. I just was like, this sucks. This time of year sucks. Can I just go to sleep and wake up in months, 3 months from now, please? Because I'd rather just skip this whole period. And I was talking with a few people this week, and I feel absolutely great. And that's unusual. That would have been unusual for me in the past. What's different? Again, the things that I've learned and the things that I'm implementing and the things I'm trying to share with you. Now, again, I think I see that as a defect, or whatever you want to call it, on my part, that for whatever reason, when people hear me, some people will take it as like a finger wagging kind of thing. So hopefully one day I'll learn how to present the information in a way that people don't hear it that way, and they just understand that I'm excited about what I've learned and what it's done for me and what it may be able to do for you. Again, I'm not asking for faith or believing it just because I say it, but I'll again tell everyone that what I share, generally speaking, is from two sources. One, the ancient wisdom traditions, and then two, modern science and medicine. And very often what I share, not always, sometimes information comes from one or the other, but very often the information that I really emphasize is information that both are in agreement. That's where I really like to live, and that's where I get the most motivation personally, is when, hey, for thousands of years, people have been recommended XYZ, and now modern science and medicine say that as well. So just keep that in mind. A lot of the things that I share with you are not just sort of like yoga myths or some kind of ancient yoga remedy. A lot of things I share with you are actually just from books I've read by scientists or doctors. Now, if you want to go do your own research, by all means, please do, and then you can make your own decisions. But I'm just naturally interested in this stuff. Again, I'm naturally more interested in learning about this than I am naturally drawn to exercise. But my interest in this, in being healthy and happy and reaching my full potential, that motivates my exercise, right? So again, if you guys just love the way you feel after these classes and that's what brings you here, awesome. Then, you just keep coming. But I know personally that there's a fair number of people that's just not going to be the case. So what will motivate you more is learning about, oh, I may not love the way I feel, but this is really important for my health, okay? All right, let's go ahead and come on out of that. So, ultimately different strokes for different folks. I know that there are some of you or some people who they don't need that. They just love it. They love yoga. They love the way they feel. They would probably rather I didn't talk about the things that I talk about because they're already on board. It's like preaching to the choir. But again, as a teacher, you have to make choices. You can't be for everybody. No teacher is for everybody. No teacher is universally loved. No religion is for everybody, right? There's no religion that everyone believes in. One person's savior is another person's, false god or false prophet. So, as human beings, this is just universally the case. There's no piece of music that's universally loved. I don't care. Beethoven, Mozart, Led Zeppelin, Dr. Dre, whatever your cup of tea is, you're not going to be able to take that piece of music to everybody on the planet and have them universally agree that it's a great piece of music. It doesn't matter if it's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame or it's a great piece of classical music. That's just the way that it is, okay? So I can only teach the way that I teach and try and motivate the way that I do and hope that it resonates with you. All right, let's bring our legs in, release. And then again, it's not a bad idea to relax for the next 5 minutes if you've got time. But unlike the Monday class, it's not as vital, okay? So as always, please reach out if there's any way that I can assist you or help you with anything. If you have any questions of anything I said, you're confused about something I said or something maybe didn't land right. Sometimes that happens. Again, usually this is just confusion that can be cleared up. Sometimes, I'm not saying things in the best way and, a way that everyone can understand. And again, I'm open to trying to learn that. So thank you for coming. Hope you enjoyed that. Have a wonderful weekend. I'm going to do a hike on Saturday. If anyone wants to join, let me know, and I'll try and give you more info, but I'm going to have some yogis get out and hike a bit. Probably no yoga. It's probably too cold for that. Anyway, thank you. Hope to see you on Monday. Have a great weekend.